Hello guys, welcome back to JADME. Today we are going to discuss about one more CKAD exam question. The question says there is a pod with the deployment name called dev deployment and in the namespace of meta. So the pod is having a logging error. So when we see the logs, so it's saying that we need to look at the logs to identify the error message. The error message is something like service account meta default cannot list resource deployments in the namespace of meta. So our task is we need to update the deployment to resolve the errors in the logs of the particular pod in the dev deployment. And the deployment also you can find at this particular path. In exam, right, you need to make sure main pods like what is the namespace and what is the service account and where is the manifest file is already located. If you know these all things perfectly, right, you are ready to race, right? And also there might be one more different way of asking this type of question, like they will give this kind of name, pod and deployment, everything, and they will say, right, there is errors, but as of now we are using a default service account. That is the reason we are getting this. So in that case, right, if they ask you to change the service account itself, then what you need to do is first you need to check whether the question is supposed to create a new service account in the same namespace, or there is any existing service account in this namespace that you need to use it, right? So instead of default one. So please be careful whenever you are answering this type of question. There is a two different ways to ask the questions, right? Okay, please switch to the correct context and start verifying the correct namespace, correct context, and then verifying the pods and deployments of that particular area. So for me, it is a completely new cluster, CTL ns. First I will create a namespace, kubectl create ns meta. This is what the namespace we need. Okay, now kubectl get ns. So want to set the context. You know, right, from where you will get the deployment if you want to practice. Okay, there is nothing much in this. You can see simply it's a kind deployment and the name and namespace and our member of replicas. That and all you can just see. And this in the spec you can see, right, service account is default one. That's what in the question also mentioned. And the containers. So let me apply it. kubectl apply fanf the deployment. Okay, still it is creating. Fine, we'll wait for a minute and then we will verify the logs of this particular pod. Okay, the pod is running. Now it's our time to enjoy by verifying the logs and troubleshooting always it will be interested for me. Okay, you can see, right, this is what kind of error we are getting in all right. Now our task is you can just verify. What we need to do is we need to make sure the default service account has the permissions to list the deployments. The list deployment permissions are missing here, right? So for that, what we need to do is we need to add permissions to that service account. So for that, we need to go to the Kubernetes documentation and just for search for role and role binding, go to the first one itself. If you go a little bit down, right, you can see, right, this is the one where you can create a role. Very simple. You just copy it and paste it. And only the one thing we need to make sure is the API groups. Here they have mentioned as empty. That means indicates the core API group. Core API groups are pods, config map, services, right? It won't include the deployment. Okay, so before we actually create the role binding and role, right, let's quickly verify whether by using this service account we are able to list the deployments or not. Okay, so if we are just using kubectl, or can I list the deployments as a service account meta namespace, the default one, right? It says no. So this should be yes. Then only we will see a clear logs without any errors. That's what I want to try to prove within this question, right? So for this, what we need to do is, first we will create a role. Added my role manifest. Okay, role is created. It is, as you see, same stuff. I just modified from start to apps and guest list and watch. This is simple, right? Now I want to create the role binding. Let me quickly create that as well. In your case, in your exam, right, no need to worry. Similar thing, you can do it from the same Kubernetes manifest, right? Okay, this is applied. Now let's go to the Kubernetes documentation. Here I just modified the deployments app API groups is apps, and the pods I have just modified to the deployments, and the name and namespace you just need to modify. As you see here, I just modified they are as a meta, right? Namespace I used meta only. Okay, my namespace, the name your choice. Okay, and the same name of the role you need to use in the role binding. That's what I'm going to explain you in the documentation, right? So this is as part of the role. Now if you little bit go down, you can see role binding part, right? Role binding, this is as usual, API version, kind is mandatory, and metadata name you can give, and the namespace is meta. Subjects, kind is not a user, it is a service account. Service account name you need to give here. That's what I give here. You can see in the subjects, kind is service account, name is default, namespace is meta. Same thing you also need to follow in your exam. And role reference is the main important one. So we are referring the previously created the role, and the role name I have given as deployment reader. The same I have added API groups. Now we need to delete the pod. That is the label. By using that label, I have deleted. If you have multiple pods in the deployment, use this approach, but use the labels. That is the best practice. All right. So now let's list the pods in the namespace of meta. Now it is running from last 34 seconds, right? Now we will verify the logs. Or before we go to this step, you can see the previously one command we run, just can I list the deployments. Now you can see that yes, right? You can see there is no errors. Yeah, this is what we need to resolve as part of the question. Just we verified the pod logs, and we have identified the issues that it says the service account default in the namespace of meta is not having the list permissions for the deployment. Then we created a role and role binding to grant the permissions to the service account. Service account is default, and then we deleted the pod and verified the permission using kubectl auth. Can I list the deployments? We saw that is yes here, right? And then we verified the logs. All looks great. That is how we need to resolve. Thanks for your patience for watching this video, and make sure you are practicing before you are attempting any exam, CKAD, CKAD, and feel free to comment out. I think I'm giving responses to all the comments whenever I'm getting a time. And yeah, please do subscribe if you are watching first time, and support me if you really like. And if you paused by referring my videos, either CK or CKAD, don't hesitate to buy me a coffee. Okay, thanks for watching.